Hey y'all, Azim here. We are taking a look at the histology of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, it's that funny looking gland that's hanging off of the hypothalamus. It's connected to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum. It's literally connected because you've got axons from the hypothalamus that dip down to the posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary is neural tissue. It's an extension of the hypothalamus. And the anterior pituitary, it's connected to the hypothalamus through blood vessels. So there's a specific blood vessel system called the hypophyseal portal system, HYPOPHYSEAL, hypophyseal portal system, set of capillaries that delivers hormones from the hypothalamus, releasing hormones from the hypothalamus to the anterior pituitary. All right, the anterior pituitary is true endocrine tissue, so these are at the very core epithelial cells that produce secretions into the bloodstream, while the posterior pituitary is nervous tissue. And so we can easily see that difference. If we have nervous tissue, if the posterior pituitary is nervous tissue, it's the axons and axon terminals of neurons extending from the hypothalamus, we should not see a lot of cell bodies. We should see a lack of nuclei. It's not that there are no nuclei at all. There are some cells just called pituocytes, and there are also astrocytes and other glial cells. But we're going to see far fewer cell bodies in the posterior pituitary. So in other words, the anterior pituitary will have more nuclei, more cell bodies, and therefore will appear darker. You can already see, hopefully we're at 40x, you can already see a clear difference between this side, this is anterior pituitary, and then this sliver here, that's posterior pituitary. There is this middle section called the pars intermedia, literally the intermediate part. We're not going to go over it. We're not going to cover what it produces. So from here over, that's anterior pituitary. From here up, that's posterior pituitary. Let's take a closer look. In the posterior pituitary, let's back up here, these are mostly axons and a smattering of axon terminals, as well as blood vessels, because this has to release hormones to the blood. In the posterior pituitary, we're producing oxytocin, which stimulates smooth muscle of the uterus, smooth muscle of the mammary glands to secrete milk, and also oxytocin does a bunch of other things, but those are the two things I'd like you to know. Antidiuretic hormone is also produced here, or released here, because it's produced in the hypothalamus, released from the posterior pituitary. Antidiuretic hormone helps your kidneys retain water, and also by retaining water, you increase blood pressure. So here you can see axons. You can see that they're fibrous going in one direction, because those are bundles of axons. There's blood vessels here and there, like you can see capillaries like right here. Those are blood cells in there. Let's see if I can find any axon terminals. Nothing standing out immediately, but if you see like a small round-ish cluster that does not have a nucleus, that would be an axon terminal. I see a lot of blood vessels here. Blood vessel, blood vessel. This might be an axon terminal here, what I'm pointing at right here, and perhaps right there. Yeah, so that's what you see here. Axon terminals, or axons and axon terminals in the posterior pituitary. I'm going to go back to 100x, that was 400x. Here's the anterior pituitary, darker than the posterior. Don't worry about this intermediate place. Anterior pituitary, let's go to 100x. There are 3 cell types that I'd like you to know. Well, first, let me point out this weird-looking thing. These are, they're called colloid-filled vesicles. Don't worry about these. They're artifact. Let's focus on the cells. So we know it's a cell because it has a nucleus. So let's go a little bit closer. Oh, we are here. We're at 400x. I want you to pay close attention to the color of the cytoplasm. Obviously, the nucleus is going to be dark, but what does it look like surrounding the nucleus? Some of the cells appear more purple. So like this one. This one appears more purple. Purple cells, those are the dark purple cells, those are basophils. 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 They're called that because they're basic dye loving. They stain well with a basic dye. Basophils, what do they produce? Specifically, basophils produce one of 4 hormones. You can produce adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. They produce luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone, LH and FSH, which collectively are known as gonadotropins because they stimulate the gonads. And they also produce thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, because it stimulates the thyroid. So those are the purple ones. Those are basophils. You'll notice that there was also some pinker ones, like, oops, too far. Like here's a nice pink cytoplasm. Those are acidophils. Acidophils, they're acid-loving. Acid is in the dye, like an acidic dye. Acidophils produce 2 hormones that we'll go over. Prolactin, which stimulates the mammary glands to produce milk, and growth hormone, which stimulates all over the body to grow. And it stimulates the liver to produce another hormone, insulin-like growth factors. That's the pink one. Those are basophils. There's one other cell type which actually doesn't produce any useful hormone, but just so you know that it's there and it doesn't produce those 6 that I just mentioned. This one right here has a nice dark nucleus and a clear cytoplasm. Since it has a clear cytoplasm, scientists like to be, cheeky. They say that this cell is scared of dye. So the term for that is chromophobe. This is a chromophobe. Chromophobes don't produce any hormones that we're interested in, nothing interesting. But basophils are the darker ones, darker purple. Acidophils are the pinker ones. Basophils produce adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, luteinizing hormone, LH, follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, while acidophils, the pinker ones, produce prolactin and growth hormone. All right. Hope that helps. That was the anterior and posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary is true endocrine gland. Posterior pituitary is nervous tissue. And the anterior pituitary is an endocrine gland. It releases directly to the bloodstream, and it's epithelial by nature. All right. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you have questions.